Hello and welcome to another installment of You Can't Beat the Drums. Well, today's the last day of Christmas vacation. You can see by the beard I haven't shaved. So it's back to work tomorrow, but I thought today, before I go back, I would go on a mission to try to find another inexpensive drum set to fix up and sell. Now I saw on Amazon Marketplace, I think it was, a drum set for $60. Now it turns out the guy is selling the case and a couple of other items for $60, and he said that the old Pulse drum set was free with the case. So he said it needs a little TLC. Not sure what that means. We're about to find out. But one last thing, for Christmas, my family gave me this. Thought you would appreciate it. Yep, brand new 16-inch Zildjian crash cymbal. It is a medium thin crash, and we'll be going to my Dave's Basement Band drum set, the sewer pipe set that I show on one of my other videos, how I made it out of sewer pipe. Well, gradually I'm replacing the cymbals with better quality ones, so when I practice, it'll sound that much better. Anyway, onward and upward, let's go check out the $60 drum set and see if I can buy it, fix it up, and resell it. Thanks for watching. Well, I don't know if it's legal to film while driving. I know it's not legal to talk on the phone while driving, but this isn't really talking on the phone, it's filming. Anyway, on my way to an undisclosed location because the gentleman decided he did not want to be on camera. So the problem is it's going to be just you, me, and the drums apparently. But that's okay. We'll still be able to go on this adventure, and I'll have to just describe what the guy was like later on in the video. Okay, we're almost there, and this of course is the time when the seller and the buyer both get just a little bit nervous. Is the guy going to show up to buy something and turn out to be an axe murderer? Is the seller going to try to kidnap me? But of course that'll all wash away once we start talking about drums, because drums are the universal bringer together, I guess. Anyway, let's go see what he has to sell. Here we are, and there they are. Look at the drums. There's a drum and a stack of cases with what I assume are drums inside. We also have a rolling case that's all included for $60. Can you believe it? Heck of a deal. And there's a story behind these drums, and maybe I'll tell that to you a little bit later once I hear it from the current owner. And here we have it, loaded up and ready to go. A rolling case was included, as well as cases for all the drums. For $60, the case alone was probably worth it. But no cymbal stands and no cymbals, so I'm going to start collecting those and see what I can come up with. Okay, so I'm back here in the drum studio. Let's see what I actually got for $60. Well, first of all, there's this rolling case, and this thing is actually really nice. It's got wheels on it, and it's in excellent condition. It's got little pouches on each end, you know, so you can tuck things into it. And then inside the case, we have some of the pieces of the drum set, I believe. Let's see if I can, here we go. You've got the little snare drum stand. It's a very inexpensive double braced unit, but at least it's double braced. It's a Pulse, which is the brand name of the drums. So that's nice. We have floor tom legs, that's always nice, and they have the rubber tips. That's a bonus. Let's see, what else do we have? We have, yes, not one, but two tom holders, so that's handy. Okay, now let's, also when I was visiting a local music store, I found a hi-hat stand for $20. It's another light-duty double brace one, so I bought that. You can see that it has a couple things missing, and that little wing bolt is not a wing bolt anymore. I'll have to replace that, but I got lots of pieces out in the garage to do that. I also have an old bass drum pedal I got from one of my other drum projects. Again, relatively inexpensive unit, but hey, ball bearing and it works. Little WD-40 will stop the squeaking, and that'll match nicely with the hi-hat and snare stand. Now let's take a look at the drums. This one we saw already. It's missing the head, but it has a nice Remo Emperor, and that'll probably be the bottom. And it actually looks like it has a rims tom holder system on it, which is kind of interesting. So let's see now if I can see what else is in these cases. These are all Roadrunner cases, came with it. I mean, the cases alone are worth more than $60. Okay, here we have, it's like Christmas all over again. Here's another Pulse tom. It has also the rims mounting system. This has two heads, the nice clear Remo Emperor on the bottom, and then a Looks like probably ambassador or something on the top. So that's pretty cool. Then we have this little jewel. This, of course, would be the snare drum. And it's in the child-proof case. There we go. Now this thing is your typical Japanese chrome snare drum. It doesn't look to be in terrible shape. It does not have any snares on it. Has a pretty good snare head though, one minor dent, but other than that, snare is in good shape. Top hair is fairly worn. It's a ambassador, standard ambassador. I have an extra set of snares I bought for another one of my drum projects, so that should be okay. It looks like the throw-off strainer device works okay, so there you go, no disappointments there, kind of what was expected. Then we have this thing, which, another nice road case for it, and this I suppose would be the floor tom. It's difficult to navigate this stuff when you're sitting on the floor and you're old like me. Another clear battery head on the bottom. It's the Emperor again, in really nice shape, almost looks new. And then a slightly worn top clear head. Again, the pulse matching silver. Has some residue from duct tape, but that's okay. The goof off or residue remover that I have in the other room will make quick work of getting rid of that goop. And then finally, the piece de resistance, as they say in France, probably. And that is the bass drum. So we'll see what this looks like. Yes, it says pulse. It has little Evans double pedal beaters on it, so that's good. It even comes with a pillow, which is really good in case I get sleepy. Now that probably needs a little bit of work. Not sure I like the spider spray paint design very much. I might have to change that a little. The shell, other than being dusty, has some pretty bad tom rash on it right there. And also even worse here. So a lot of tom rash there. Gonna see if wow, cleaning it up would be good. I can get that cleaned up a little bit, but that's definitely mars the look of this thing. Bass drum legs look intact and complete, so this is a good project. I'll see. I will see just exactly how clean I can get it, and then maybe put some new heads on it or something, see how good I can get it to sound. I will report back to you very soon. Stand by. Okay, so what am I doing driving down a dark country road in the middle of the night?
Mile, slight left turn.
And taking a slight left turn to get there. Well, I'm on my way to buy a pair of Zildjian ZBT hi-hat cymbals. They're inexpensive, I realize, but they're better than nothing, and for $35 for the pair, it was a deal I couldn't refuse, even if it meant driving way out here in the country to find them. I finally found the house and was able to pick them up, and I'm gonna clean them and add them to the set so someone can have some fun with the drums at a reasonable cost. Well, here is the prize I obtained for $35 after driving out in the wilderness in the middle of the night. The bottom hat looks relatively clean. I probably won't do anything with that, but the top hat looks pretty terrible. So I'm going to do the old barkeeper's friend routine. You've seen that on my other videos, to make that all shiny and beautiful. Now the logo will go away, but it's worth it to make it look really shiny. I'll leave the bottom one as is, so if they want to see a logo, they can get on their hands and knees and look up. This one is one that I took off my practice set. I got a brand new Avita Zildjian high-end cymbal that I added to my practice set, so I got rid of this one. Little by little, my practice set is going to have all great cymbals. But anyway, this is a low-end Zildjian. They're not that bad. I mean, they're not obviously as good as the top-end Zildjian cymbals are, but for a intermediate or beginner set, they actually work really well. And then I did an experiment a while ago and bought this for like $29. And it is a totally cheap cymbal. I got it off Amazon without even hearing it. And actually, it really doesn't sound that bad, surprisingly. It's not obviously a really high-end great cymbal. But for a beginning set, it really doesn't sound awful as a crash cymbal. So I'm going to add that and this and these to my $60 drum set. and I'll add up all the costs and so forth, and we'll see if I can break even when I turn around and sell it. So here it is after I polished it. You'll notice it looks just a little bit better. Pretty amazing. Anyway, they look pretty good though. Now I got to take apart the drum set piece by piece, polish it up, and see how good I can make that look. Whether it's collector car parts, collector motorcycle parts, or drum parts, it's important to be organized. So I've labeled these Ziploc bags for all the different parts as I take apart the entire drum set and get ready to clean every piece and buff and wax the shells. Well, this drum head was pretty much black until I took some Comet and a moist rag to it, and as you can see, it cleaned up fairly nicely. There's still some areas where it literally wore through the coating, obviously, but overall the head looks a whole lot better than it did, which is always nice. Well, there they are, the shells all disassembled and all the parts in little baggies. So now I'll get the 0000 steel wool out, and I know that's going to freak out a lot of people. They say never use steel wool on drums, but I've used that super fine zero steel wool and it works really, really well. So let's get the chrome polished up, then I'll use my Griot's buffing machine to buff the shells and maybe wax them to see if I can get them looking as good as possible. And then we'll put it all back together and try to get it to sound good. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Why is Chris driving in his car at night again when it's all dark and cold outside? It's because I found on, I think it was Amazon Marketplace or maybe Craigslist, another Pulse drum set, same color, same everything, for $150 up in Seattle. Now this came with a few extra parts apparently, so I thought I'd better go check it out and see what it's like, because chances are I could buy it, add it to the set I've got, and make a really cool double bass kit, far more large and impressive than just the original 5-piece that I was going to do. So we'll see what's involved with the parts. We'll see if it's worth it. Sometimes if I buy something, I can then sell the additional parts and make some of the money back, thereby lowering my net purchase price. So let's find out. Okay, here we are after an hour of driving, and this is the set. It's here in this garage, ready to be picked up by me for the princely sum of $150, and I'm actually with the, I think it's the owners. Are you the owners of this set?
Our son was the owner, yes.
Ah, your
son.
son.
It for our son, who just got a full-time job, so he's off doing his job.
Oh, does he still play drums?
Not so much anymore, but part of this was a set he built up and saved his money in high school. Got bits and pieces and kind of built it up, but then when he went off to college, he didn't have obviously the place to bring the drums or the opportunity to use them, so he decided to make a suitcase drum set. And so that's what he did, and he bought some extra parts and pieces because he didn't want to break up his set in order to construct so he has a big Samsonite suitcase that is the base, and he has other pieces that he took and then bolted onto the suitcase, so it all unpacks and is a little mini suitcase, some drum set.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah,
so what do we have? We have the,
Yep.
of course, the Pulse drum set, and there's a couple of other drums. Looks like that's an old Rogers tom. That's interesting, and another tom below that. And
Right.
box of box O parts,
Yes.
and then the little part of the hi-hat stand there. It looks like the top is kind of missing the clutch. Luckily, I have a couple of
maybe
extra
that fell off.
clutches.
Okay.
But anyway, all right, time to pack it up and get it home and see what we got. I mentioned I'd gotten a couple of extra drums with the set that I bought for $150. This was part of it. It's a shell with a rim. It's an old Gretsch, has the tom mount, some scratches, obviously, but I found out I have 6 extra lugs to go with it. So I have a guy that said he'd give me $75 for the shell, and I thought I'd throw in the extra 6 lugs just because I'm a nice guy and not trying to make a bunch of money on this thing. The thing about this drum, though, that's a little unfortunate, is that there is a crack right there, a pretty significant crack on the bearing edge, so that will take some repair. But anyway, the point is, I now have basically cut the price of my drum set in half once I sell this. So I paid $75 for the entire set and an extra Rogers tom, and I'll see how much I can sell that for, and I may end up making money on the actual set purchase. Until, of course, we start adding the pieces that are missing. But that's another story. Stay tuned. Here's the Rogers tom after I cleaned it up. It has some surface scratches you can't really see in the picture, but it cleaned up pretty nicely. I used the old Comet on the drum head routine to get the head looking clean and wonderful, and so I ended up getting $115 for it, and then Reverb paid the shipping apparently because it's a new way of selling for me. I've never used Reverb before, but hopefully the guy will enjoy it, and it helps lower my net cost. Basically now, the original set I bought for $150 has cost me nothing. In fact, I've made $15 on it because the original Gretsch shell, after shipping, I only netted $50. And then this, for $115 or so, that's $165, and I paid $150 for the whole bunch. Now, of course, as I mentioned, buying all the extra parts needed to make the set workable is going to jack the price up a little bit, but certainly everything I sell from the stash that I got with both these sets helps lower the cost for me and therefore the cost of whoever's going to buy the set. So the drum studio is getting just a little crowded. I had taken apart the first set and waxed and polished every part and then put it all back together. I'm still working on the bass drum. As you can see, the lugs are all off of it, and I've got to get the lugs polished and put back on. In the meantime, I ordered a couple of cymbal stands. They're $22 each. It was like 2 for $45, and you can see they're, double braced. They're certainly light duty. They wouldn't really hold up if you're going on the road, rocking out or something. But actually, for $22, it is amazing how sturdy they actually are. And I think this will keep the price of the set down and still do a good job as far as keeping the owner happy. The extra things I got, of course, were these little drum parts that are kind of fun, a cowbell holder and things like that, some extra lug bolts and a little device to clamp on something. And that was all part of the package deal. And then this bass drum pedal I had, and I found another one on eBay for $20. Shipping was $15, but $35. At least I'll have 2 matching pedals, which is great. And I think I may have shown you that I cut a hole in this clear bass drum head that I had that was, it really had a big hole in it already. So I just put a 10-inch tom, which was the smallest hole I could make, and still have it cover up the big rip in the head. And I put some chrome around the edge. I think I showed you that. So I'm going to do the same thing with this pulse head, and I decided I'm going to buy a matching power stroke head because the new kit I just got has a Remo power stroke on the bass drum. So again, matching things are important. I also had to add a clutch. Found a little clutch I had, so I added that to the hi-hat stand, as well as an extra wing nut that was missing. So that's all squared away and taken care of. And I even got a stick bag. Hey, wonder how old that is. The snare drum in its case down there, that actually looks really good. I'll probably be able to sell that to a student or something and get some more money out of this. So I'll actually have a little more money to spend on the heads and things like that I want to use to make the set look really good. And net, I should come out with a pretty good set that I can sell for a pretty good price. I may have mentioned this in another video or maybe even this video, but when I have an old head that's got a lot of stick marks on it, sometimes I'll use the Griot's buffing machine with some moderately fine compound to get some of those stick marks off the drums. It usually makes them look a little bit better, a little bit newer. Sometimes, if you're not careful, the logo gets ground off, but overall, it just makes the drum set look just a little bit better for the prospective new buyer. Something else I'm doing is I'm disassembling the drums, waxing them, polishing them, cleaning up the lugs, is I'm taking this packing material, slicing it up into little pieces, and inserting that around the springs inside the lug. So you don't get that springy reverb sound that you might get if the ring comes from the spring because it's not being muted. So the little pieces of foam, I use the tip of the scissors, just wedge them in there around the spring so it can't vibrate. And that's just one more way of making these drums sound a little better once they're assembled. You can see I've already gotten some of the drums finished, put together, and soon I'll have the whole big double bass set ready to go. So I had that Remo head with a big rip in it, and I measured that 10-inch hole and put the chrome around it. And now I want another head for the other bass drum. I bought brand new batter heads for each of them to match. And this is the head that came with one of the drum sets originally. Now, it's not holy, it's okay, but rather than buy another new Remo head and cut a hole in it, I'm just going to cut a hole in this one. And even though it'll say pulse on it, sort of, it will at least have the chrome ring in the middle, and maybe it'll look close enough that it'll still look good. This is the pattern. I just set that in the center, measure it, and draw a circle, and very carefully cut the center hole out, and then line it with the chrome. Now, it goes against the grain in my brain to cut a hole in a perfectly good head. But since it's a cheap pulse head, I guess I don't feel quite as bad. And as I said, it will probably look okay with a chrome ring side by side. It won't match exactly, but probably close enough. Okay, there's Benji looking at the drums, which are now completely waxed. This was the second set I bought. Took everything off of them, buffed the drums with the Griot's buffing machine, and then waxed them. And there's some drums from the other set that are waxed and put together. There's the other part that's waxed and put together. And this is the bass drum head I just was working on. It's turned out pretty well because I buffed off the Pulse logo and I used the chrome. So now it looks pretty much like the other one, except it just doesn't say Remo on it. And of course, here are all the parts all individually polished and all that. This is the stuff I used around the hole in the bass drum that I cut. It's that stuff that you use around the edge of car doors. It's split. You can see there, it sort of slides over the edge. It's not very focused, but sorry about that. Anyway, and it's pretty inexpensive to buy and works pretty well. So now I'm going to put it all back together, and then I'm going to tune it. Then I got to figure out what to do about the cymbals and the hardware. Okay, so here is the drum set so far. After having taken it completely apart, every single chrome piece has been polished. The drums were buffed with a buffing machine and waxed to make them as beautiful as possible. And the cymbals were polished as well. So you can see the bass drum technique I told you about, where I had that split head. So I just cut the split out of it, made them look beautiful. Chrome looks good. The only real problem with this set is that the bass drum has, this bass drum's fine. This bass drum over here has huge tom rash. You can see that. Look at that. Tom rash there. Tom rash there. And that's really a shame because it really lets the side down, as they say. But overall, it looks like a pretty cool set for a beginner. And there are the Zildjian hi-hat cymbals. Now, the set has not been tuned yet. Not too bad. That's another inexpensive Zildjian cymbal. And that is a no-name cymbal I got for like 30 bucks, but actually sounds pretty good. The bass drum pedals match, and they're actually not bad for no-name pedals. I drilled a couple of extra holes in the throne post there so I could actually raise it up a little bit more, because it was made for midgets originally, apparently. And don't mean to offend midgets, so I should say little people. It was made for little people. Anyway, this snare drum head has a little bit of wear on it, but overall is in pretty good shape. I look forward to tuning the drum set, but my biggest question is, should I buy a decent ride cymbal and then attach an extra cymbal stand to this thing somewhere? Because it would be better to have two crash cymbals on a set this size and a decent ride, or at least a partially decent ride. But let's talk about the costs, because that's the big question everyone has. Can you make money buying these inexpensive drum sets? By the way, it's not Christmas anymore. We just have not gotten around to taking down the Christmas tree yet. Well, let's take a look at what we spent. And I don't use fancy graphics because I'm not sure how to do it. So I'm going to use the old-fashioned paper. Works great with this little pointer, notice? Okay. So the first kit, 60 bucks. The second kit, $150. Then I bought hi-hat cymbals for $35, 16-inch crash cymbal for $35. That's that low-end Zildjian crash cymbal. 18-inch crash ride, which is a no-name, and I think I paid with shipping, 35 bucks. Resonant bass drum head, that's the used head that I cut and modified, and I figured that was probably worth 5 bucks. Bass drum pedals, well, I had that one left over from another project, and I bought the second matching one on eBay for $35, including shipping, so I just figured they'd be $35 each in terms of value. The snare wires, I had those from another project, but that's about 10 bucks. The hi-hat clutch, I have a box of those, so I just charged $5 for that. Then I had 6 used controlled sound batter heads. I cleaned them up. They were not very used, so they make the drum set look a lot better, and I just charged like 10 bucks a piece as far as value goes. The 2 new cymbal stands I bought for 20 bucks a piece. Basically, it was a special on Amazon, brand new for $20 each if you buy 2 of them. They're really not bad. I think I may have showed them to you. They look like that. They're double braced and obviously fairly light duty, but you know what? For $20, I mean, it's pretty amazing. You know, get these inexpensive pieces that are way better than what we used to use when I was a kid back in the 70s. Anyway, that's $40. Then we have the bass drum and 13-inch head I bought. I didn't have to buy one tom head brand new and a new bass drum head. And then I wanted the bass drum heads to match, so I bought another one. They're the, I think they're Power Stroke 4s. Okay, then the snare stand. I did buy a snare stand, but that was for the extra pearl outfit. As part of this whole thing, in the second drum set I bought, it came with a couple of extra toms. It came with an extra case for the snare drum and so on. So the snare drum belonged to the case, and that's what I kept together, the pearl snare drum. It's a little better than the pulse snare drum, but I figured the pulse snare drum was good enough for this set since it matches brand and everything else. Anyway, I figured that was a cost of $30, which I hope to recoup when I sell the snare drum. So to get the set in this condition, really, you're looking at $633. Well, I wouldn't pay $633 for a used set like this because it's an inexpensive set. So what's going to make this even partially valuable for me? Well, I don't need to make any money because I make money off the YouTube channel, so I can sell it for what I have into it. But there's no way I could sell this thing for $633. Well, fortunately, I was able to sell that extra Gretsch shell that came with it for a net profit of 50 bucks. The Rogers tom, I sold that for a net profit after shipping and everything of $100. So you add those together, that knocks my out-of-pocket down to $483, which is a little bit more reasonable. Now, the additional sales I hope to achieve are the drum cases that came with that first set. A whole case, set of cases, a bass drum, ride tom, floor tom, snare drum, and a nice rolling trap case. If I can get 150 bucks for all of it, that's good. And then the pearl snare drum outfit, $100. I should get $100 from that. If you subtract that, that gets it down to $233. Now, obviously, that extra snare drum stand I talked about for 30 bucks, $263 is my actual out-of-pocket if you want to look at that as an expense, which it is. But if I can, even if you count that, $263 out-of-pocket, if I can sell these two things, I could sell this kit without a ride, kind of as it stands, for about 260 bucks. And it would be, you know, for $260, a really nice kit for some young kid that's just starting out, or maybe somebody that wants a set for his practice room or something. Once I get these things tuned, I will then let you know what they sound like. It's interesting, this inexpensive kit still has the rims type mounts, which is kind of unusual, I would have thought, for a lower end set. Pretty cool. Anyway, now if I add a ride cymbal and a little cymbal stand used, that would probably bump the price up to around $300 or $325. Maybe $350. So my question is, do I try to find a cheap ride that sounds good and add a cymbal stand to make this thing a little bit more complete and try to get $350 for it? There's a break point at about $250, $275 where drum sets will sell relatively easily. Above $275, $300, it becomes a little more challenging. But if the ride cymbal's included and another cymbal stand, I think with this set, the heads, the condition they're in, the bass drum heads, which are brand new, I'm thinking I could probably get $350 for it pretty easily, maybe even a little bit more. So I will give you the conclusion of this in part 2 of the video to determine if I got the ride cymbal and who comes and looks at it and if, in fact, it ever sells. So thanks a lot for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and like the video, or don't like it, as the case may be. By the way, this has a pretty nice Tama hi-hat stand, so I throw that in. Okay. Thanks for watching.